Hello, everybody. Welcome in to the NBA Front Office Show. Happy Monday. We've got a ton to talk about around the NBA. Not a surprise, given that the trade deadline is now creeping up February 6th. It is almost here. So we've got a lot to get into on the trade front. And, of course, a little bit of drama. Keith, there's always some drama going on around the NBA, but no, maybe not quite to this level usually.
Yeah, I mean, I don't watch soap operas. The closest I ever got was watching Desperate Housewives back in the day, and I was a big wrestling fan way back in the day, and those are basically soap operas. But yeah, I mean, the NBA is the best soap opera going. I don't need to tune to anything else. There's all kinds of drama in this world.
No, not when you've got this.
I want to see me get my joy back from playing basketball, and wherever that may be.
Can you get your joy back here on the court?
Probably not.
Apparently, Jimmy Butler can't get his joy back off the bench either. Jimmy Butler, reports comes from Shams Charania as well as Ira Winderman that he walked out on the Miami Heat today after shoot around. He was not pleased when he was informed that he would be coming off the bench. And now the Heat have responded by suspending him indefinitely. Winderman clarifying that suspension will last for at least 5 games, which means through essentially the trade deadline. Keith, it feels like more certain than ever that we have seen Jimmy Butler play his last game in Miami.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't see how you come back from this now. My guess is these previous suspensions were for, there's different types of suspensions in the NBA. I'm not going to run through all of them because they would bore everyone to tears. But the main things you need to know is there's 2 really with Jimmy Butler here. There is the one type that is basically the suspension where it is you are like your conduct detrimental to the team. Mm-hmm. That was what he was suspended for initially, missing the team flight, the other stuff that he had done. Basically, the Heat said go away. You get suspended at 1 rate of pay for that. That's like 1/145th of your salary. If you are suspended for withholding services, which it sounds like this one might be because he left, right? He's like, all right, then see you later. That's like 1/96th of your pay. And that's going to be, that hits his wallet, far heavier than it would otherwise. So, and I know some people are probably like,
he's going to appeal.
This guy's got more than enough money. Yeah, he's going to appeal anyway. But now that he has actively walked away from the team, that's going to be harder for him to appeal. Like, that's going to be a challenge to appeal that. The other parts, sure, and maybe this will float into, hey, if they hadn't antagonized him, they hadn't done these things. But, I mean, this is a real mess. And this just tells me the fact that everybody is basically saying, hey, they're going to hold him out through the trade deadline. They're going to do what they can here in the next 10 days or so to get this deal done. Yeah. There's no more saving this. There's no more even trying to make this right. It's got to be get a deal done. That doesn't mean it's going to be give them away and take whatever you can get. But I do think we're going to be in a position where it is, let's kind of, just get this over with sooner than rather than later. I'm trying to pull it up, but there's a new
update. Yeah, I'll get that. The Heat issued a statement. And I will I'll get that up. Here it is. They pull no punches. Nope. All right. Here's their statement from Miami. The Miami Heat are suspending Jimmy Butler without pay effective immediately for an indefinite period to last no fewer than 5 games. The suspension is due to a continued pattern of disregard of team rules, engaging in conduct detrimental to the team, and intentionally withholding services. There's that language you were just talking about, Keith. This includes walking out of practice today. So you're absolutely right. So there's a combination there of conduct detrimental to the team, and now he's being hit with the withholding services label. Yeah. And that carries that heavier fine. So not good. The bottom line, Keith, they got to get him off this roster. And we questioned, there was, it was kind of put out there. I don't want to say Jimmy said this, but it was put out there that, he can make the situation even more uncomfortable. And we all wondered, well, what is that? What could that look like? I mean, now we're getting a sense of this. And I think big picture too, if you're Miami and you're trying to sell Heat culture even if you're not trying to sell those jerseys anymore. You're trying to sell Heat culture and this whole, the team before me and all that kind of stuff. It's difficult to do that when Butler is walking out because he was asked to come off the bench. I know that's a slap in the face to a player of his caliber. He is a superstar in the NBA, but Bradley Beal is coming off the bench. Nurkic is coming off the bench. Russell Westbrook has been asked to come off the bench in the past. This isn't totally unheard of for a player to be asked to come off the bench. Now, there's a lot of context around this situation, but still, I mean, if he won't even consider doing something like this, and I do wonder how much of this was Miami trying to antagonize him and all of that, but there's two sides to this, of course. This is not all on Jimmy, but this needs to end. They need to move on. They need to get him off the roster, and they need to get it done by February 6th.
100%. Everybody looks bad here.
Yeah.
No one looks good. Everyone looks bad now. Jimmy Butler looks bad. The Heat look, in my opinion, when you walk away from the team, the Heat now look slightly less bad, but I mean, they don't look good either in this situation. And I think what you're really looking at here is I have to wonder if the idea from the Miami side was let's put Haywood Highsmith into the starting group because Haywood Highsmith is a long-term part of our team, and we're going to try to build up with those guys. Then let's turn it into, all right, Jimmy Butler will come off the bench, and maybe they don't even play him at all, right? And then maybe Jimmy Butler is like, well, wait a minute, I'm not just going to be benched. Like I'm not dealing with that. Like if you want to make me inactive and you want to do these other things, fine, but I'm not going to show up to the arena, go through warm-ups, get my pregame treatment, get all ready to go, and then just sit on the bench. I'm sure that turned into, nope, not happening. I'm out of here. And now we're where we are. He's going to get dinged pretty heavily here over the next 5 games at least. My guess is this will resolve. We will see a trade by the trade deadline, and that's where it'll go.
Yeah, that's where this is going to wind up. Now, Bobby Marks just broke down the math. Yeah. You mentioned it's going to cost Jimmy Butler a lot. 5 games minimum of $2.6 million that it'll cost Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, that's it. It's just the bigger suspension on this one. Sorry, someone's asking me similar-ish question about the math because we're trying to get some stuff up.
We're reacting on the fly here to what's going on.
We're doing this on the fly. It's not as fun as a trade, but it's still news on the fly that we're getting. This literally broke only just a little bit before we started recording. So I mean he's gonna feel this one. This one's gonna hurt, but again, I think Jimmy Butler is the kind of guy who's like, I don't really care. I want traded. He's got more than enough money. So, this is not gonna, it's not all of a sudden like Jimmy Butler's gonna have to fully focus on working at Big Face Coffee and serving drinks. He's gonna be okay here. But I mean, this is messy.
So now we've got multiple teams that have been reportedly interested in being part of the Butler trade. In fact, I believe it was from Mark Stein's report earlier today that kind of, tongue in cheek said that it's like half the league that wants to be the third, maybe fourth, fifth, whatever team in on a Jimmy Butler trade. There's a number. We've heard the Toronto Raptors as being a team that could potentially be in. The Bucks could potentially be a team that's in. The Hornets. There's a number of teams that are waiting, and that's
the Wizards are now being mentioned. I mean, it's basically anybody, not necessarily in on Butler, but in on, hey, we'll help get this straight across the finish line. If that's where if he's going to go somewhere else, which there's very few places he could go directly in a 2-team trade. It's just extremely complicated to pull off. So you almost need it to be a 3-team trade. We've all obviously heard the Pistons mentioned as well. I had a tweet over the weekend, or it might have been at the end of last week. It's all running together now, where I was talking to a bunch of teams and they're like, it's kind of got the whole market just held because all these teams are basically saying, hey, and one team told me we have a deal in place that we're ready to do. And the other team likes the deal, but they're like, we might need to move that guy if we can get involved in a Butler trade. And they're like, so you can't make them do the trade with you. Now, everybody did say by the time we get to about this Thursday or Friday, everyone's going to be like, all right, hey, we're either in it or we're not, and we're moving on because we got to get our own work done. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy right now. I mean, some of the things that are being done, I mean, some of the trade constructs that are not just on the spot track trade machine that people are going crazy with, which over the weekend we bumped to allowing 10-team trades because people were like, I wanted to make a 6-team deal and it's too hard to do it as separate. So we went to 10 because at 10 it could still process. It didn't get too messy. Anything beyond that, one, you're a maniac and like I'm going to take your internet access away. But two, they it just bogs everything down. It gets to be a mess processing wise. But yeah, I mean, I am endlessly fascinated with this because one, I just want it done because I want to see what this trade ultimately looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to see. I mean, number one, where does he wind up? And does he wind up in Phoenix, which it appears to be where he wants to go? And does that, are they able to find a taker for Bradley Beal? And we'll talk about him. In fact, let's just jump to that here.
Sure.
The Bulls, and I mean, in Chicago, I could hear the cacophony of a entire fan base screaming no at the top of their lungs. The Bulls have been discussed in a Bradley Beal trade. I mean, my God, they would have to get back so much in order to. This makes no sense for the Chicago Bulls to do this. Now, Brian Windhorst did mention, he said the same thing. My initial reaction when I saw the headline, I went, why would the Bulls do that? There is no way in hell they should do that. And Windhorst mentioned that he doesn't see why the Bulls would do it either. So he's not saying it's happening, but that they've had that conversation. That's a little scary for Bulls fans, I would think. But they've discussed potentially being in a Bradley Beal trade. He has to go somewhere, and Miami doesn't want him. So he has to go somewhere if Jimmy Butler is going to make his way to Phoenix.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, people keep saying, well, if they did this and it's like, yeah, but dude, none of those are realistic. Like they're not going to find multiple homes for multiple guys to get out of the second apron. They're not trading Durant or Booker because then Butler wouldn't want to go there anyway.
Yeah.
It has to be Bradley Beal. From the Bulls' perspective, I can look at it from this standpoint and say he doesn't make that much more than Zach LaVine. If we are really, and we're going to talk more about the Bulls here, we've got a couple more Bulls topics.
Yeah.
But if it was, he doesn't make that much more than Zach LaVine, we are taking this thing down to the studs and going to be a mess anyway over the next couple years as we move into full rebuild territory. Who cares even if he's got the no trade clause? Like we're probably not going to be good enough for it to matter in the next couple of years. And maybe if we're so bad, he might be like, just get me, a team that's decent wants me. Great, I'll go. Bradley Beal has been pretty clear. He doesn't have any interest in being like a mercenary. He doesn't want to continue to move his family all over the country. That I think is very real for him. So that part gets messy. But yeah, if I'm the Bulls and it's like from the Suns direct, you're not going to get much draft pick wise, but if I could get a couple picks and maybe pull off, like, can we get Ryan Dunn? Can we get Oso Ighodaro? Like, can we get one of these young guys who's got a lot of potential? All right, then maybe we're, willing to at least have the conversation and see where it goes with taking on Bradley Beal. But I mean, that's, I don't know. That's rough because Zach LaVine has real, actual positive value to me now on his contract.
He's outplaying him.
He's way outplaying.
Not close.
He's, and he plays basically every night. And Beal doesn't do that. Now, how much of that is because of the trade stuff versus actual injuries? Who knows? But yeah, I don't know, man. That one was crazy to me too. And then when I saw, all right, I listened to the whole podcast. I heard all the stuff. I saw further reporting on it. I was like, all right, I kind of get where they could be going with this. But man, I don't think Bulls fans would be too thrilled.
No, they would not be. There would have to be some piece to this where you would go, oh, it's because they're getting X, Y, and Z, like stuff that is really exciting for it to make sense for the Chicago Bulls.
And let's not forget too, whether it's the Bulls getting Beal or another team getting Beal, it doesn't have to be just assets coming from the Suns. If this expands into like a 4 or 5 team deal, whoever is being the full scale facilitator here, just, hey, we'll take on the contracts. They could get paid by 2 or 3 teams in this trade to take stuff on, and just push this through. So that's important to remember because they keep seeing people say, I just don't know if the Suns have enough. Like, I get it, fully understand that. But if this becomes part of a much bigger thing, then I kind of understand where it is like, okay, I kind of get, now where it could be, all right, this team's actually sending a young player. This team's going to send a draft pick. And that's how all of a sudden you could come away being like, all right, I don't like Beal's contract either, but they're going to stink anyway. So who cares? Like, you just look at it as I'm eating a bad contract and getting paid to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of the Bulls, they are willing to trade anyone but Matas Buzelis. So I think that's probably where Chicago should be right now. You should be willing to listen to on just about anybody on your roster. I know they're going to what?
I'm laughing because in my head, I'm like, should have been there like 2 years ago.
But, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But I mean, whether it's Patrick Williams or, I mean, obviously they should be more of a motivated seller on Lonzo Ball, on Zach LaVine, on Vucevic, and we're going to talk about him in just a minute. It makes sense for the Bulls to really be open to doing this. Now, that said, Keith, I mean, when we're looking at the standings in the East, I mean, I don't know. Like Chicago, they've got to start really dropping some games if they want to get into the point where they feel secure to keep their pick, which is top 10 protected. Kind of playing with fire a little bit here, but there's a game between them and Philly. Who knows where exactly Philly's going to go? But Philly's 3-7 in their last 10. Chicago's 2-8. I don't know that they can lose more, but now because they've won enough already, I don't know if maybe that'll come back to haunt them. I mean, giving up like the 11th pick in this draft would definitely hurt.
Yeah, it hurts. I do think sometimes, and I trust me, I am guilty of this as well. I do think sometimes we make too much of a team where it is they'll protect a pick so they can't do X.
Sure.
Where I think there is time where it is like, no, they can. It's like I always think back to the Nets, right? When the Nets were rebuilding from the wreckage of the Celtics trade, there was a point where Sean Marks basically came in and said, I'm crying over spilled milk if I keep saying we can't fully rebuild. And at that point it was, all right, those picks are gone. I can't do anything about those. That's sunk costs. I need to move forward. If I'm the Bulls and I'm saying we're gonna fully rebuild, I would say, all right, then let's at least get this pick conveyed and off the books. And it sucks, but we can't let that be like, well, let's maybe add some players and really try to chase, chase a playoff spot just so we give a worse pick. I think you at some point have to say, forget it. It is what it is. And if it conveys, it conveys. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm glad you pulled up Tankathon. That's where I was opening on my screen over here. Yeah, I mean, 9's not where you would want to be, right? You'd probably want to be 7 or 8 to feel really good about it. And they're still within range. They're only a couple wins behind. Assuming if they bottom out, Philly will pass them. So there's one. And then I don't know what the heck Portland lost last night, but I don't know what them and the Raptors are doing. So maybe they're like, hey, if they want to keep winning games, maybe they'll catch us too. But if you get to 8, you're kind of like, all right, well, we would need, what's that? You'd need 3 teams to jump you. That's probably not happening in the back half of the lottery. So at that point, I think you feel kind of good about, all right, if we give this up, or we're at least in a decent spot. What is funny is if Philly also says, yeah, we're not really going to go for it either. We're going to try to keep that. Who the hell's going to be the 10 seed in the East playing tournament? Like at that point, I'm 100% in favor of being like, look, none of y'all want it. So we're going to actually bring over the Western Conference, 11th seed and let them play. It'll be, it'll be a handicap. They've got to play in the East through, but at least give them a shot because none of you guys really want to be here.
Keith, I know a lot of people aren't familiar with Major League Soccer, with the MLS, and it is, I mean, their system is fairly complex. I am a casual fan, and I am very much not, well versed on every piece of it. But the MLS draft, it is very common, and they call it the super draft, even though it is anything but. It is common for teams when it comes their turn to pick for their selection to be pass.
Yeah.
Like that's a common thing. They pass on their pick.
Yep.
That feels like what the 10 seed in the East is lining up to be.
Right?
Hey, do you guys want to be the 10 seed? Pass. No,
Yeah.
no, thanks. Pass. We're not interested. I mean, I would have to imagine whoever winds up there, it's probably one game and they go home. I mean, you never know because players are always going to compete, but yeah, that 10 spot in the Eastern Conference, it is looking like it's going to wind up being a team that probably does not have any interest in being there.
Yeah, I mean, it could still be Philly.
Sure.
We'll give benefit of the doubt there. That maybe they are, and there was some stuff I don't think we put on the list, so might as well talk it right now. Josh Harris gave an interview to David Aldridge over the weekend. I assume he also owns the Commanders, so I assume it was before their playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that Josh Harris, who's the Sixers governor, said, like, we're still like in on this team. Now he said we want to give it a few more weeks and then decide. Well, a few more weeks is after the trade deadline. So at that point, I mean, yeah, you could still be like, it's not working, pull the plug and we'll go. That says to me they're probably a little more likely, hey, we're going to try here at least for a few more weeks. And maybe we'll make a smaller move or two around the edges with the rotation and those kind of things. And then we'll figure it out. But yeah, it is weird. Like there's very much a world where, like, if it's the Bulls, I could see the Bulls being like, we'll use today's standing. So it's Atlanta. Hey, Atlanta, we're here, but good luck. You're gonna have to be real morons to lose to us today. Yeah, with that. So
all right, now the Bulls on the trade front, they do want a first for Nikola Vucevic. I would have to imagine that would be a fairly heavily protected first if anybody's going to give up a first for Vuce. I mean,
yeah,
I know he's good, but does anybody buy that this is any kind of a sustainable thing moving forward?
Well, and that's the thing
the problem.
exactly. And that's what I've said for months now. It feels like is if you're the acquiring team and he just goes back to being a normal shooter, you're like, what the heck? This guy stinks because water will find its level at some point. He's not all of a sudden one of the greatest shooting big men we've ever seen in history. He's always been a good shooting big man, but this even now he has tailed off some, but it's still ridiculous. But on the flip side, still a double-double guy every night. He's one of the best rebounders in the league. He's gonna get you points. So I could see giving up a first if you were like, it's gonna be a first in the 20s. Like, sure, why not? Like, I have no real issue with that, unless you're really like, yeah, if you want to protect and say, hey, we got to protect this, top 20 protected just in case everything goes sideways on us. And if I'm the Bulls, I'd be like, all right, we can do lottery protected maybe. And that's probably where the negotiation comes in. And then if I'm the Bulls, I'm like, if you're going to protect, then I want something more than just matching salary. I either want expiring salary or throw me, like, let's say it was the Warriors, throw me one of the kids back. Just one of them that we can kind of, at least do something, not necessarily Kuminga or Podziemski, but if you're acquiring Vooch, do you need Trace Jackson Davis? Do you need, some of those guys? They probably wouldn't want to do that, but that's where I would be at least a little more like, hey, if we're going to let you protect the pick, we need something. Maybe Quentin Post, who's playing pretty well on a two-way. Maybe you get him thrown in there. I mean, something like that could be workable.
Yeah. I mean, he's at $20 million this season, $21.5 million next season. I mean, maybe regression is already hitting him. He's still putting up numbers, but he's down to 28% from three in the month of January. He was shooting, so maybe regression is hitting there. Shooting 52% from the field. It's not like he's a bad player. He's definitely not. He can help you on the boards. He can put the ball in the basket for you. If he suddenly is a 28% 3-point shooter from here on out, you're in trouble because nobody's going to defend him behind the 3-point line. But again, he was great all the way up until the month of January. So I don't know exactly where that will settle, but at 34, I think teams have got to be careful with him, especially because he's not going to give you anything on the defensive side of the ball. He can rebound and he can finish a possession with the board, but teams are going to pick on him defensively. They're going to try to get him to defend in space. And so you got to be careful with it, but I do think he could help somebody for sure. It'll be interesting to see if he gets a first. I do think when you look at the market and what's happened with like Nick Richards, with Finney Smith, with Dennis Schroeder, all these guys are going for seconds, with the caveat being that it's for expiring money that's coming back in. Maybe that's where this winds up. We get like a 3 or 4 second round picks, but it's expiring money. If it's not expiring money, that's where we get into a first or something like that. I think it'll be really interesting because he is such a big piece of what is a fairly robust center market right now around the NBA.
Yeah, and that's it. That's the other issue. It feels like there's way more centers available than there are teams that need one.
Yeah.
Because if you look at most of the playoff contenders, it's kind of the Warriors could use a center. Pistons maybe. They're like Jalen Duren's there, but they're not always thrilled with him.
Mhm.
That would be a place where, like, if they came away and it was like, hey, we got Vooch with our cap space and one of our smaller contracts. I don't know that I hate that. Like, okay, I'm kind of all right with that. That's not the end of the world. And you play him and Duren together. There's your 48 minutes of center play. You know, not together, but you know what I mean. They split the 48 minutes, and that's how we split it. Like, okay, that's not awful. Like, I could live with that. That's where they went. But yeah, this one almost feels, though, realistically, Warriors are bust because I just don't see, where it makes sense. Now, maybe again, if something really goes down in this Butler trade and money is moved all around, then maybe all of a sudden a team does find themselves, hey, we need Vooch, and that's where it happens. But yeah, little odd. We've got another center we're going to talk about later, but the other one, he's not going to get traded.
All right, let's go here. The Clippers do not want long-term salary in trades. This is under the new CBA. This has become more and more common where teams.
Yep.
I mean, they are flat out allergic to any salary that goes beyond this year. They have no interest in it. They don't want any kind of risk when it comes to that sort of stuff, which may play out when we get into free agency and all of that with teams preferring shorter-term contracts. But teams do not want long-term money unless it is a clear steel bargain of a contract on their books. You see the Miami Heat essentially putting a hard line on 2026, saying we don't want any money that goes past then. The Clippers saying similar things in terms of if they're going to make a trade, they want to maintain future flexibility and they don't want any long-term money coming back.
And I think what the Clippers are looking at is a similar timeline to the Heat, where in a couple more years, Kawhi will be on an expiring contract. We'll only have a couple other deals left, and we can really jump back into free agency. Because the thing with the Clippers that I read was, it was very clear, this is not out of we can't spend, we can't be. This is just Steve Ballmer saying, let's fully reset things, and then let's go hog wild, when we can again, and let's go nuts. Now, it's going to be extremely hard for them to ever get back to where they were, salary level wise, because once you move those salary slots off your books, it's very hard to regain them. It would take any number of years of building up your roster. But I do think the Clippers are more, let's really reset. And then whether it's 2026 or maybe 2027, when Kawhi comes off the books, then we're going to go nuts, chasing free agents and going after all kinds of guys, because we're going to be in a spot where we can do just about whatever we want.
And yeah, so we'll see what they could. Obviously, they're going to be very willing to spend. Steve Ballmer has, he's put in the cheat code. He's got infinity money. So that's not going to be a concern. However, and this is why part of why the new CBA was created, so that Ballmer can't just spend, and the Warriors can't just spend. They actually have to, be under some kind of restrictions by limiting their ability to actually build a roster. If they spend too much. So now they're going to find a way to kind of reset all of this. You've got James Harden as a player option for next year. Kawhi Leonard, 2 more years under contract after this one. You do have, Ivica Zubac, if they decided to really, really reset, like the way Zoo is playing right now, he would be easy to move. If they really wanted to tear it down, the contracts that they've got would not be difficult for them to move off of. And even if they don't, they could have a lot of flexibility here in a couple of years.
Yeah, that Zubac's contract is one of the best in the league.
Yeah,
right now.
He's been great.
He's been unbelievable this season. He's probably going to be an all defense level guy this year. Like probably should make an all defensive team. He's been great. I actually wrote about their defense on the basketball bulletin today, because I don't know how many people fully realize they're second in the league in defense now. And they play extremely physical on the pro. They've even got James Harden out there like bodying guys up, because I think Ty Lue has kind of said they're not going to call every foul. Let's go out there, be extremely physical with people, force them, funnel them to Zubac. He'll clean it up, and then we go from there. They are playing really, really good basketball lately right now. Yeah, the Thunder are like lapping the field. But don't you love that when you're
I hate that NBA.com. They've just started doing this where now they've got a pop-up every time you go to NBA.com. Like, it is so annoying.
So, the Thunder are way out in front of everybody, but yeah, the Clippers
Yeah,
are right there, man. Like
that's the other thing that's noticeable is look how much of a gap there is between the Thunder and everybody else.
3.3 points. Yeah,
Crazy.
it's ridiculous. And it's not like the Thunder are then like 107 offensive rating like the Magic are. Like they're 116 offensive rating. That's eyeballing, and I'm gonna guess that's somewhere in the 4th or 5th range in the league for the Thunder.
6th.
A little lower. They're still.
I mean, but still, that's like if you are the number one defense by that much of a margin, and you're the 6th best offense. I mean, that's easy title contender, right? Like usually you look at title contender, and in most cases, to be a true title contender, you got to be top 10 in both offense and defense, or you've got to be like truly elite in one and like no worse than top 15 in another. But that's pretty rare. The Thunder right now 6th in offense and number 1 by a lot in defense. Like that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think it is. Let me double check this. So they have now their last couple games being a little bit closer. They've slipped behind the 71-72 Lakers and the 70-71 Bucks for the highest scoring differential of all time.
Wow.
Like they're tied actually with the Bulls of 95-96 right now. So gives you a sense. The Thunder are like historically good with where they've been.
Unreal. All right, let's jump over. Going from the Thunder, let's go to the exact opposite of the Thunder, which would be the Washington Wizards, the worst team in the NBA right now. Kyle Kuzma says he won't try to fit in with the Wizards any longer. What do you think about this? I mean, saying he's just going to go out there and play his game. He's not going to worry about fitting in and all that. Like, we're a week and a half from the trade deadline. You think there's a little something behind that?
Oh, hold on. Let me pull up Google Translate into trade request talk from English. This says, when it translated, it says, I should have taken the trade to the Mavericks last year. I didn't, so now I'm going to be a pain in the butt, but not quite as big a one as Jimmy Butler is. Okay, so that's that there. I translated it.
Man, Google is on the money.
All over it, man.
They got
special programming there. Yeah, I mean, that's what this is, right? This is Kyle Kuzma basically saying, hey, like, I'm going to go put up numbers, right? And he actually played really well. He matched his season high in points and rebounds, or said one was a season high, one was matched. I can't remember, but he really went out there and kind of did his thing. And I think the Wizards are probably like, cool, dude, like you're still only going to play 25 minutes a night because we're going to play the kids anyway. And if you want to shoot when you get it, we don't really care. Yeah. Like, just don't be an idiot. Don't pull an Andrew Bynum and start firing 80 footers down the court. Like, then we'll probably be okay with this. Cause I think if you're watching, it's like, we were losing with you fitting in. I don't think this is going to spark a huge, win streak here. So,
no,
I mean, and if you look they are awful. Like, we just talked about the Thunder being historically good. The Wizards are historically bad. Like, they are absolutely awful. They're not in range to set any kind of record for the lowest amount of wins in history, but I mean, they stink.
I mean, look at their games.
Yeah.
Look at the point. Look at the scores. They're getting, like, this is Kyle Kuzma here, and you can see he did have 30 and 11 last game, 4 assists. Sure. But still shooting below 30% from 3 for the month of January, and he's not shot the ball well this month, the season. Yeah. But my God, you look at the point differential. They got that random 125-107 win against the Bulls.
So that was a month ago.
But that was January 1st.
Yep.
And since then, I'm trying to see what's their closest game been. They lost by 6.
Is there a 6-pointer in there? Yeah, that Philly game. 6.
That Philly game, they lost
Warriors,
by 6.
They lost by 8, and then the Suns got them by 10. So, but I mean, 10 and over is not great. So,
yeah. There's a 7-point Suns loss, but I mean, they're not just losing; they're getting crushed on a nightly basis.
Yeah, they're awful. Yeah. And this is a perfect example. So whenever they come up on hey, it's time to check in on the Wizards, but you haven't watched them for a little bit on my schedule. I'm like, all right, what are Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly, Keyshawn George, and Bob Carrington doing? Because quite frankly, I don't care about any of the rest of it. Like the team stinks. The game's not going to be good. Let me just see what the kids are doing, and then I'm out of there. Like it's just still watching because have to. It's part of the job, but man, it is rough.
Really brutal for Washington this season. But there'll be a seller at the deadline, and we'll see what happens from there.
And they've got some interesting guys. I mean, Kuzma could still help a number of teams as a combo scoring forward. Brogdon, combo guard off your bench. Valanciunas, maybe. Mark Stein, I think, reported today there's been like no movement on Valanciunas. Like it's just kind of been there. So, which I'm sure our Lakers portion of the audience is not going to be overly thrilled hearing that. But I mean, it's who knows what they're asking for too. If they're being silly with what their asking price is.
Yeah. I mean, the Lakers portion of it right now has become like he's kind of like when you're applying to college, he's the safety school.
That's the 2:30 on deadline day move.
Yes, right? Exactly. That's oh man, we didn't find anybody else. All right, I guess we'll do this. He's the community college here. That's the way they're viewing Valanciunas. Yep. So I don't think anybody's too worried about not seeing movement there on that. There's because Gabe Vincent has started to play better. There's a lot of Lakers fans that are kind of like, do we even want to use Gabe's salary to get for Jonas? Maybe not. So yeah.
And he fills an actual real role on the team too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
exactly. All right. So speaking of centers, Walker Kessler essentially unavailable. So that means the Jazz are taking calls on him, but they're asking for so much that it's not realistic to think that they there's a point, Keith, and I was talking about this earlier today. There's a point you can get to where when you're asking for so much that you're essentially sending the message that you don't actually want to make a trade. And that seems to be where Utah's at.
It's almost like make us a really stupid offer, and then we'll do it. Like if you start, you start talking about it, 4 draft picks and 3 kids, sure, let's go. All right, but other than that, no. We're out. It's going to have to be an offer you're going to get killed for. And if I'm the Jazz, that's fine. There's been this weird thing that's happened with Walker Kessler. It feels like he's 23, and he's a center. So centers often take them a little bit longer. So I don't worry as much about age with centers. Clearly, he's got 7, 8, 10 years left of good basketball in him. So he's clearly back in the good graces with the team, the coaches. He's been really good this season. If I'm the Jazz, I'm like, why do we need to trade him? He makes $4.8 million next year. There's no real reason to move off Walker Kessler in a trade. So we're just going to keep him. There's no reason to move him unless you really want to get dumb with what your offers are. So yeah, I get it why they would be saying this. And this is also the game Danny Ainge plays too, right? He's going to say, I need multiple first round picks or, no deal. That's what he does.
Right. And people ask, well, why was he on the market to begin with? Well, because last year they pulled him from the starting lineup and he wasn't happy with that. And so he wasn't happy in Utah. That's where you got some talk over the summer about, well, maybe they would move on from him and that sort of thing, but it never actually came to fruition. And then he's been really good this year and he's been put back in the starting lineup. So I think it's some stuff
married to Miss America. So he's living life, man.
Is he?
Yeah. His girlfriend, I think it was Miss America. So someone's going to correct me that I probably got it wrong, but it's something like that.
Oh,
yeah, she was Miss Alabama.
He's married?
Or it's his girlfriend. I don't know.
Okay. I don't know.
His
I don't know.
significant other.
His significant. Oh, well, good for him.
Yeah, I only know because I saw the video of him and Will Hardy. And you've seen the whole thing. They look alike. Him and Will Hardy do.
Oh, yeah.
So they were both watching on his phone, watching the ceremony while they're at team dinner or something like that. So no, that's the only reason I knew. But,
all right.
Hey, one other thing before we jump in, because I forgot to put it on here. So a couple people have put things out about this. I made a couple calls today to people I know in the league. The Myles Turner stuff sounds like it's all speculation versus reporting. And that's two very, very different things. Reporting is this guy's available and the team's actually looking to move him. Speculation is, and this happens all the time, you'll be talking to somebody with a team and it's not even the Pacers in this example or a team that's even talked to the Pacers, but it's I wonder if the Pacers could move Myles Turner because, they're going to be able to pay him.
Yeah.
Like that's what I think has happened here. There's no indication the Pacers are looking to move him. When I wrote about the Pacers as in my buyers and sellers piece today on Spot Track for the Eastern Conference, I wrote that I don't think they'll do anything. Now, if they've decided we are not re-signing Myles Turner in the summertime, then you should trade him. Like, then that would make sense. Move on from him. But the Pacers are good. They're trying to get back to where they were a year ago, make another run at the East Finals and, maybe beyond if they can, playing really good basketball. They're not just going to move Myles Turner. So anybody who's kind of dreaming about that one, I don't think it's going to be a thing.
They're going to have to do something. And it's either be willing to pay the tax or move off of some players for next year.
And I think that's next summer.
Right. And that's this, this coming summer, they'll have to make some moves there. Right. But that's not an impossible task for them to do. And here's the other point that I've been making is that if Myles Turner is saying, I want to be in Indiana, that matters, right? I mean, there's not a lot of guys who want to be in Indiana. Like, it's not this hotbed destination for free agents and stuff. So I do think that if Turner is saying, I want to be there, and the Pacers are saying, we'll pay you what you want, then they're not going to move on from it. Just if it gets to a point where the Pacers say, oh, you want this much? Well, yeah, we're not going to be able to get there. We don't want to pay the tax, or we don't want to go into the first tier or whatever. That's where maybe they look to move on. But even then, it's such an interesting market this year, Keith, because of the situation with Jimmy Butler, with Brandon Ingram, with all these other guys, where their incumbent teams are saying, well, yeah, you can be a free agent this summer, but where are you going to go? So we don't feel any pressure to move you by the trade deadline unless we're getting what we want in return. So there's that dynamic as well, where the Pacers wouldn't even necessarily have to trade. Even if they decide we don't want to pay you, they don't necessarily have to trade him at the trade deadline as they would in other years, because there's not 5 teams lining up with cap space to go pursue him this summer. There isn't really any cap space aside from the Nets and the Wizards, and I don't think they're going to be adding much there.
I don't think Myles Turner's jumping for joy to play for either one of those teams. So I'm with you. Yeah. The reason I always say, if a guy's on an expiring deal and you've decided you're moving on, pull the Band-Aid off. Like, Myles Turner is probably not making the difference between you winning a title and not this season. So you might as well, see what you could do. But yeah, I wanted to put that in there because I've been asked multiple times about that over the course of the last few days. And it's just not really a thing. All
right, let's go over here.
All right. I'll do these rapid fire if you want.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. So Brandon Miller, I can't remember if we talked about this or not. I know we talked about the original injury. He has now had wrist surgery. He's out for the season. Maxi Kleber, Derek Lively, we already talked about, is out in Dallas. Maxi Kleber on Saturday broke his foot. So he's going to be out several weeks as well. We don't have a timeline yet on that, but he's going to be out for several weeks. DeJounte Murray, this is a weird one. If everybody remembers, he had the broken hand early in the season, his right hand. Then he had a left pinky injury, which all of a sudden turned into he's not playing and he's going to have an MRI on his left hand. The Murray one, partially why this is interesting, is he has now missed enough games where he is not eligible for postseason awards. That wasn't going to happen anyway. Mm-hmm. But also he had a whole bunch of bonuses that were tied to him playing in at least 65 games. That's not going to happen either. So that's got the Pelicans now, when they're really looking at it and saying, all right, we're going to be closer to the tax than we ever were. We're within one small salary shedding move away from getting out of the tax. Paul George is dealing with another injury. Again, now at this point, I think he's also got a pinky injury.
Yeah, he's out.
He's going to have an MRI on his left pinky and finger. So that's a thing with him. So we don't really know. I think Murray might have been his index finger on his left hand. I think it got which left fingers are messed up there. But Jonathan Kuminga of the Warriors released an update today. He'll be out through the trade deadline at least. He's several weeks away. He's out of the walking boot, but still isn't doing anything. Then Jalen Johnson, this one's a little odd because he had a right shoulder thing earlier in the year, missed some time. Now he's dealing with a left shoulder injury as well, and he's missing some time for that. There's been no, this is a 2 weeks, this is all week, this is day to day. Like, it's just he's out with this shoulder thing. So, and the Hawks are starting to slip as we don't need to pull the standings back up, but they're now under 500 again, have dropped back in the Eastern Conference. So they're just kind of in that mess around who's going to be the last team in the playoffs, who's going to be in the play-in tournament in the East.
All right. Well, there's a number of injuries around the NBA right now. It's felt like we've gotten some players coming back recently though. So, but more guys picking up injuries. Talking about the Maxi Kleba thing, I wonder if that puts Dallas into the market looking for a center. Like we talked about this the other day, but just looking for kind of a fill-in for the time being. Doesn't have to be like a long-term, because you're still going to have Lively. You're going to have, Gafford, any kind of we had that for like a week ago where it was like, oh, they might trade Daniel Gafford. No chance now. But yeah, I do think that maybe Dallas could be a team to watch, looking for, not talking about a high quality, just a large human being to add to their roster.
And they made a move with their two-way contracts. They waived Jay-Z and Gortman, who was a guard on a two-way, and they added Kyler Kelly, who was with the South Bay Lakers on a two-way, just to have, somebody put it, just to have someone that's a 7-footer in the room with Gafford, like to have him out there. So, we'll see. They're limited in what they can do. They've got hard cap concerns. I have a ton of tradable salary, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a small move out of Dallas.
All right, Isaiah Thomas, back in the G League.
Fun stories here to wrap up.
He tends to tear it up in the G League, doesn't he?
Yeah, he was so good last year. The Suns signed him and then kept him for the rest of the year. Sounds like let's do it again. And nothing's going to happen before the trade deadline, I wouldn't think, with Isaiah Thomas. But we get past the trade deadline and teams like, we could use another guard on the bench. Wouldn't be surprised if they make a call and bring him in. He's just going to show enough. And he, so far as the last 2 years, has shown enough in the G League to earn spots back in the NBA. He'll be 36 now, though. Like, we're, well, once those numbers tick past the 3.5 there, that starts to get a little worrisome. But if you're still legitimately in the conversation to be on an NBA roster at 36, at 5'9", when you were the last pick or next to the last pick in the second round, that's a hell of a career. You beat the odds a million times over with that one. So
big time
for IT.
Big time.
Yep.
All right. And then Mac McClung will be in the dunk contest, joins the group that he tried. Now this would make him a 3-time winner, right?
Yeah,
in a row if he wins it again.
The first one ever. To do it 3 times in a row. This one was one of those ones where there was reporting that maybe didn't really want to do it because I think Mac McClung is like more than a dunker. Like, I want to be known for more than that, but he's gonna be in there again with let's see if we can remember him this time. Stephon Castle, Modest Buzelis, and Andre Jackson Jr. So those will be the 4 guys. The other All-Star news was if they do the shootout, which would be very cagey. We don't know if we're gonna do the Steph Sabrina shootout. They may do it on Sunday. They're talking about doing it in between the games.
Oh, that's interesting.
Sunday. So we'll see.
They're trying to give people more of a reason to watch the All-Star game.
That's exactly it. Yeah. The report I read this morning was they want Sunday to be the event again after Saturday has kind of become the event. So who knows? We'll see. Let's see what this new format looks like. Yeah.
We'll have to give it a shot. I won't, because I'll be on a cruise ship, but everybody else can give it a shot. Maybe I'll watch it from the bar or something like that.
Funnel vision or something.
There you go. Yeah. There we go. All right. Well, a busy Monday around the NBA. And Keith, we gotta, this is now time. We gotta lock in here because the trade deadline's gonna be here
soon. Yeah, we're working unexpectedly soon, I think.
Yeah.
Like something's gonna go down. I don't know if this suspension moves anybody on a Butler trade or not. Maybe the Heat are finally like, we've had enough. Let's go. Maybe another team's like, all right, they're ready to crack and they'll take back an extra year on a deal or something. But yeah, we're going to be working soon. I can tell.
Yep. Let's go. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining the show today. Make sure that you do subscribe over on the YouTube channel. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts as well. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.